Hi, everyone. Hi, I'm Keith Vitali, and welcome to Sidekick Podcast. In this episode, this is part two with my very good friend, Don the Dragon Wilson. And in the first episode, we kind of focused on his kickboxing history, martial arts history. And this one, we're going to focus on his movies and upcoming projects. And let me just tell you this, he's got an extensive film history. He's appeared in over 60 films. He was a star in 32 of them. Um, he actually received the Best Actor award for playing for a role he played in Paying Mr. McGetty by at the Burbank International Film Festival. Guess what? He's not finished yet. He's got 4 or 5 more upcoming films. One of them is with our good friend, the queen of martial arts, Cynthia Rothrock, in a movie called Black Creek, later to be shot this year. I'll have a small cameo role, and hopefully I can do something with Don himself. Please welcome my very good friend, Don the Dragon Wilson. Hey, Don, how you doing?
Hi, good, good. Hey, I just want to correct one thing, Keith,
Yes,
on my
please.
intro. I was nominated as Best Actor at the Burbank International Film Festival for Paying Mr. McGetty, but the winner of that is actually Marcus Taylor, who was the good
Oh, I
guy
didn't know
in the
that.
movie. Yeah, Marcus Taylor actually won the Best Actor, but I was nominated as Best Actor. But darn it, Marcus got the award.
Good. Get this. I mean, it's such a small world. We were texting, Marcus and I were texting back and forth this the other day. So I know him as well. So
He's going to be
that's good.
here. He's good. He's good.
Yeah, and he's going to be in that Black Creek as well. The
Oh, yeah,
movies.
yeah, I've heard he just got it, put in, which is good. I like, we worked together in a couple of films now. Paying Mr. McGetty, he was the good guy, I was the bad guy. And, The Martial Art Kid, we had a fight scene in The Martial Art Kid.
Well, let me tell you this: what people don't realize is today we have martial arts in every film almost. If it's an action film,
Oh, oh,
they
yeah, action,
utilize
yeah.
martial arts in films. Back in our time, or back in years ago, they if you really wanted to see martial arts, you had to go to a pure martial arts film. And you were one of the kings of this industry. And let me just mention a few of the names that you were a film giant among all these people. And I'm telling you, I was in some of these films, 9, 8, 9, 10 of them. I wasn't a giant by any standards, but you were. Watch this. Lorenzo Lamas, Steven Seagal. Now, these are only Americans I am going to point out. The filmmakers, the action film stars, not the Jet Lees or Jackie Chan's or Bruce Lee's. Uh, Van Damme, Chuck Norris, Cynthia Rothrock, Richard Norton, Jeff Speakman, Lauren Avedon, John Barrett, the Ree brothers, Simon and Philip Ree. So out of all these fantastic stars that starred in their own movies, you had your own movies. And guess what? You did a series of 30, like you said, you were a star in over 30 of them. And I was so intrigued by your relationship with Roger Corman. Why don't you talk about that?
And Roger Corman is known to be the king of the B movies. That's his nickname, his moniker. You call it the king of the B movies. And he's produced over 300 movies. And I was lucky. I was lucky that I got called in for Blood Fist, which was my first starring role. Now, my first time in a movie was New York Chinatown, and that was shot in '82 as a Hong Kong film. So I started like you. I started in Hong Kong films. I know you've done some Hong Kong films, and but my first American and starring role was Blood Fist, and Roger Corman cast me, and then we did 8 Blood Fists together. And I tell people, well, if you do 8 movies and you're not successful, then whatever the it factor is, you don't have it. They don't know what it is, but they say, "Oh, he's got it," or whatever. But it's I don't know if it's charisma. I don't know. Maybe it's just a lucky thing or whatever. But I guess I've been lucky 30 times then because all 30 of them were successful. So yeah, I
Did
so
you
Roger
audition for him?
discovered me
Did
and I
you
got
audition
lucky.
for him? How did he discover you? How did he discover
Well,
you?
well, Blood Fist or Blood Sport came out in I guess '88, and uh, he wanted to do a movie like that. So he had a script written called Blood Fist, Blood Sport, Blood Fist. And Van Damme originally advertised on, well, not him, but Canon Films advertised that he was the undefeated world middleweight champion kickboxer on the poster for Bloodsport, the original poster. It was taken off later though. But so Roger Corman saw the poster and thought, well, I got to get a kickboxing champion to make this movie successful because the Canon Films did it. I want to do the same thing Canon did. So they went to the karate magazines, the casting director, and they said, "Are there any world champions that live in LA? We want to come have them come and audition." And so they gave my name and my phone number. And because back in those days we had phones that were listed in a phone book. There's an archaic thing called a phone book. I don't think they even exist anymore. I don't remember the
I
last
think so
phone
either.
book. But but anyway, they were and so my number was in the phone book. So the casting director didn't know me, didn't know what I looked like. He calls me in, and all he knows is I'm a world champion, and my name is Don Wilson. So I come in, and when he sees that I'm an Asian American, Japanese American. He said, "Mr. Wilson, I apologize for calling you in. This is for a Caucasian lead, but we cast the brother, and but maybe you can be the bad one of the bad guys." So I get this what they call sides. It's the scene you're going to read, and I look at it, and I get in the casting office, and closes the door, and he says, "Read for me." So I do the reading, and he said, "I'll be right back." And he leaves his office, and he says, "Roger Corman wants to meet you." Now, had I known who Roger Corman was, Keith, I would have been very nervous. If I had known that he discovered Jack Nicholson, Robert De Niro, put Stallone in his first movie, first, successful big movie, um, Ron Howard, Francis Ford Coppola, Jonathan Demme, James Cameron. He started all these careers.
And
How
now Don Wilson,
nervous would you be when you're going to read for a guy who basically a star maker?
right?
No, uh, but I didn't know that. I just went into his office. He had a big couch. He sat on a couch. I sat on a chair actually next to the couch, and we talked about my fighting and that Chuck Norris was a friend of mine. He suggested I came to L.A. to be an actor, and so Roger Corman asked me to read, to do the scene that impressed the casting director so much that he called me into Roger's office so Roger could watch me. So I read it with the casting director of the scene. And I only get out, Keith. You know how auditions go. They let you do your scene, and then they say, "Thank you very much, Keith," and then you leave.
Okay.
So anyway, so we're talking about Roger Corman and then how I got my first role because I did 8 blood fists, but the first one you got to be cast, otherwise it doesn't start. Your career is not going to take off. But Roger interrupted me after about 4 lines of dialogue. I just barely did the scene, and he interrupted me and he said, "Don, here's the script. You leave in 2 weeks." He had seen all he
Gosh.
needed. Yes, and all the actors I know, because believe me, I'm not considered a thespian in Hollywood. I know a lot of A-list actors, and they ask me, what scene was it that got you the starring role in Roger Corman's movie? And it was a scene where I go to Manila to find out who killed my brother, and I hire a trainer. And in the scene, I find out my trainer is the guy who killed my brother. So it's a real big betrayal thing. And John Cusack was a good friend of mine, and I worked with him on Say Anything. I taught him, because it was about a kickboxer. So they hired me to train John Cusack. So John Cusack said, if you ever want to know how to play a scene, do the What If School of Acting. And I didn't know what he was talking about, Keith. I said, well, what are you talking about? And he said, what if it happened to you? And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, I can do that." And so I thought to myself in the office of the casting director, I thought, "Well, what if some guy killed my brother, and then I found out he's the guy who did it?" I guess I must have got my game face on, Keith, because I must have got into the character because all Roger had to do was watch me for a few seconds, and I was the star of his movie. But Keith, how much luckier can you be to have the only scene that I could do convincingly is the one that was written for me. A scene where my brother has been murdered, and I find out this guy is the murderer in front of me. And so it's not hard to. I guess I my game face came on. It's not hard to imagine how I would feel, right? I would want to kill the guy. So when I looked
Right.
at him, I was saying the dialogue from the page, but I was looking like a guy who was getting ready to kill the casting director. And Roger Corman cast me in the movie, told me, he said, "Don, you're going to do these movies, martial art movies." He goes, "Later in your life, you'll move to action movies." And he goes, "Much, much later, you're going to be a dramatic actor, famous dramatic actor." And he hands me the script. He goes, "You leave in 2 weeks." So,
That's right.
Keith, my life changed. Like that meeting, let's
Yeah.
say I got into the place. I would say it was within an hour and a half, let's say, my life changed for me for the rest of my life. I literally have made, not ashamed to say it, or I'm not bragging or anything, but I've made millions of dollars as an actor. And
Well, here's
I
the
can
thing.
yeah, I was one of the highest paid kickboxers, and I didn't make millions of dollars as a kickboxer, Keith. but
Well,
but
no, here's the
I
thing.
know it
But
was
Jeff,
luck. No, it was luck, Keith.
no, it's not lucky as you think it is because guess what? We've all seen, like, let's say somebody's doing a kata, a form. You don't have to wait for the person to finish that kata before you figure out if that guy's good or not. After
Oh,
about 10,
yeah, yeah.
after about 4 or 5 moves, you go, that guy's good. You don't have to say, hold on. I need him to read the whole script or I need him to finish the kata. No, in 3 lines, he had you sold him. So
I
you're a better actor than you give yourself credit for. He could have
Well,
done, I
no, no,
think,
look,
instantly.
now I'm saying back then. Now I've worked in, like I said, 60 films, and I'm
Right?
surrounded by, like, I do scenes with I'm with Michael Ironside, Edward
Oh, yeah.
Albert, and uh, Fred Williams is a very talented actor, and uh, I don't know. I've worked with very talented actors, and they're like acting coaches. You just watch them. If you pay attention to them, how they get into their characters, and then you're into your character, they bring it out of you. They say it's like tennis. If you play tennis with a great tennis player, you got to up your game, right? You. Otherwise, the ball's just going to zip by you. Jimmy Connors is just going to whack it right there. You got to do your best. So by working all these years in Hollywood with the best actors I can get on my sets, um, listen, Richard Roundtree brought it out of me. A lot of people thought by Blood This Free, I said, "Wow, Don, you're really." I'm saying actor friends like Chris Penn. He said, "Don, you're really getting the hang of it, man. You're starting to, give a good performance." But it was Richard Roundtree. If you stay, Keith, if you're in a scene with Richard Roundtree, you're in a cell. There's not much room, right? You're spending hours with him before, during, and after. There's in a relationship. He was working on me as an actor, relaxing me, talking about my character, talking about the scene, getting me all prepared. Yes. And look, you're going you're gonna either fall on your face with a good actor or they're gonna bring you up. Like if you
Right.
had a scene with Robert De Niro, I bet you would look better than you ever have in your life as an actor
That's a good point.
because he will get it out of you. He will, if he has to, he'll lean forward and get in your face or something. No, I was doing a scene with a guy named James Russo. I don't know if you know the actor. He's a
Yeah,
very
yeah, of
talented
course I do.
character.
Of course.
Okay, we do the first rehearsal together, and I'm giving him respect. 'Cause I respect him as an actor. He's doing me a favor being in my movie. He's playing the police captain. This is a movie I did with Cynthia Rothrock and Chris Penn and Richard Norton. And it's called Redemption, and I believe anybody can watch it. Or I was doing this movie and with Chris Penn, and James Russo says, after one rehearsal, Creek, he comes around, he goes, Don, how are you with talking with actors about performances? And I said, James, if you were going to fight in Madison Square Garden, wouldn't you want me to give you some advice? I said, just anything you got to say to help me. He said, okay, Don, here's what I see.
Yeah, I do too.
Your character is into your own thing. You're in this big guilt trip about getting this officer killed. Basically, I got Cynthia Rothrock killed. So I feel guilty. So he said, don't even look at me until my character makes you look at me. That was the key. The key was I was giving him eye contact. Like you and I are doing a scene, you're gonna give me eye contact, eye contact. But in that moment, like if your mother had just died and I walk into a room and I'm a little off, you wouldn't even look up at me, I don't believe. If you're in this grief, this guilt, this regret, and all, you just and that's what made the scene, Keith. That I didn't look at him when he was talking. And then when I did look at him, it was because he got right in my face. Basically, what he did was this. The blocking is where you move in the scene. I don't believe I don't believe Art Camacho, who's directing it, told him to do that blocking. I think James Russo just did it. He noticed his as a police captain, he's looking at me. I'm not looking at him. He wants to get my attention, right? As a character. He got up from the chair, he came around his desk, and he gets right in my face. Then I looked up at him. he turned it from a flat scene that wasn't really working to made me look like a good actor. One of the better scenes, one of the more in the moment, realistic scenes that I've done on film. And why did it happen? Nothing against art, but nothing against art. Not because of being directed, but by the other actor was of such of a high caliber. He
That's
knew
a great
how to
point.
get it out. Like if you had been doing the same scene, you probably make the mistake I was. Just sit in your chair and give him eye contact,
Right,
because
right.
it's James Russo. You don't want to ignore him, but you do ignore him
No,
as the character's key, as the character.
that's a
And
good point.
anyway,
You said it right. No, you said it right. If you're acting with a superior actor, he brings your level up. And that's
yeah,
exactly right. I never thought of that before, but that's a good point.
yes. Listen,
So tell me
it's
this.
there with Marlon Brando.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, you will not be flat and not reacting. In
No,
other words,
no.
yes, because his performance is going to be so real, it's going to encourage or inspire you to react naturally. How it affected you, how another actor brought me up in as an actor. Yeah.
Well, your response, your facial expression is really good too. Now, I made the transition from fighting from the ring to the screen. And sometimes I was dead when I first started, only because as soon as the director would go action, I'd revert back to my fighting days and clam up. As a fighter, you don't project, you know, emotions. You clam, you hold
You
everything in.
hold in, you keep them in. You don't even show anger or as
Yeah.
athletes, we control it, but as an actor, you have to reveal it to the audience. They want to
Well,
see you be surprised. They want to see you fall in love. They want to see you get
that's what you
angry.
do well. Yeah.
Well,
That's what you
thank
do
you.
well.
I don't consider myself a best,
Did
but
you did you take acting classes?
yes,
Did you
of course,
take
I did. I did. I took many, well,
Yeah,
several different styles because there are
gotcha.
styles of acting, just like
Oh,
there's
yeah.
styles of martial arts. And I would say one of the main ones that I draw from is the Sanford Meisner style of
Right.
acting,
Good point.
which is to focus on the other person so you're not self conscious. Because here's
Mhm.
what a lot of people do when they're inexperienced. You're self conscious thinking, oh, I wonder how I look. Or, you know what? In real life, we don't think about it. We have the last thing to think about is our expressions or what
Right.
we concentrate on the person we're talking to. And so the Sanford Meisner technique is you give what you get. Like if some guy's yelling
Oh,
at you, you're feeling an emotion to respond, you give it back to the person. So it's a style of acting, and they're what they call repetitions. You do things over and over and over until they have to become subliminal, like real life is. You don't ever stop and think, oh, I wonder what expression I'm making now. So the acting is kind of an artificial thing. But really, when you should not think about your expression, you should think about what am I feeling in this scene? Because if you feel something, it will show. And it's always more interesting. The directors have told me this. Even the wrong feeling is more interesting than not feeling
of
anything.
course. Guess what? You're so right. This is like 101 acting. So for all those people
Yes.
who there are martial artists that want to break into films, action films, they should watch this interview and listen to what you're saying. I interviewed
Right.
Lauren Avedon. He took the
Yep.
same acting classes, the same method. I did the same with Jeff Goldblum in California. And
Oh,
it changed everything because before I was conscious of me, my
not
lines,
focusing on the other person.
not right, and then forget all of that. All you do is focus on what that person is saying and react to that person. That's all
Re-
acting is. Is that
Real.
person's yelling? Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you for all that because I think part of my energy, I really want to help others that want to break into films like you. And I think what
Yeah, but
you
you got the
said was
secret
worth $1
will
million.
help them though. These
No,
secrets will help them because it's not all about punching in the kitchen, kicking. You
right.
know, unless you want to be a stunt man. And even stunt guys have to act, right? They have to come around a corner with a look on their face, an angry look, or what. In other words, there is some physical acting. Stallone, I've heard Stallone talk about this. He said, "There's physical acting. You get hit, but not. In other words, you're expressions are going to show when you're doing a fight scene: anger, surprise,
Point.
determination, fear. Fear is a strong emotion, right? Well, in a fight scene, we're not robots. You might look at a guy and the bad guy pulls a knife out. You didn't know he had a knife. So you would have a different look on your face, right? Look, if they said, "Hey, Keith, you and Don are going to do a fight scene," and we start to do the fight scene, and then I pull a knife out, you can't have the same face as you had
Right.
if well, I just doubled my fists up like this. It's going to be a different reaction. And even if you're a stuntman, you have to act. Look, I did a scene with Billy Zane, and we had stunt guys around us, and the director was not on the set. The director was directing from off the set that he was watching on a monitor. And so he didn't see the stunt guys surrounding us. And Billy Zane, as an experienced actor, was directing their performances because he said, "Look, when they open up the door, you guys are scared to go in there. The door gets open, and here's what happens. I send one of my men in. We hear a noise, and his head, they made a fake head of him. His head rolls out. And so these guys got to show a reaction, right?
Right.
And
Point.
they didn't because they were guys and they were just looking like mean, mean, mean. And then their faces didn't change. And Billy Zane saw that and knew in the scene, you, the first thing is shock, right? The first thing is you hear a noise. You don't expect a head to come rolling out of the door, right? Mostly there's these monsters. It's a science fiction. You'll never see the movie. I don't even know if it ever was finished. But oh no, it is finished. It actually did come out. But anyway, um, no, I only did one scene in it. I did one scene in it. I did what Michael Madsen does. He comes in, he does a scene, and he leaves. And I did. I've never watched the movie. Um, but I'm just saying, you as a actor, even if you're doing stunts, have to have some acting training. If you want to be in the martial art films, now I'm not saying you as an actor, because you as an actor, we have to give a performance. But I'm saying, even if you just want to do fight action in movies, we're all you have to be in the moment, in the scene. You have to react as if it's real.
This is golden for me because I have a series coming up called How to Break Into Films. It'd be 2 or 3 episodes.
Wow.
I want to discuss about breaking into films. And if you don't mind, I'm going to be quoting
Yep.
you a lot because get this,
Yep.
it is physical,
I
not
break
just
the
for the
film.
actor,
We did it.
because it's for the person that you're fighting. That stunt fighter has to project with his face. He tells a story also with his body from your reactions. Because get this, he can steal the scenes from you. It's the end of the film. Art Camacho's your director. You're going to finish it fighting the bad guy. You throw your back like round kick, and here's what the guy does for reaction. He just stole
Oh,
your
then you
power
got
from you.
no power in your kick. If he
Yeah,
does
so
that,
made you look bad.
he makes you look
So
bad.
yeah, so I'm telling people that if you want to be replaced in films, that's how you get replaced by not reaction. Your job is to make that star look good. One day, hopefully, you'll become that star. But right now, as an action stunt fighter, you want to, of course, react with your body and facial expressions. But your job is to sell it and
Yeah,
make that
that's
actor look
the term.
great.
That's the
Yeah,
term. Sell that hit. Because
good.
look,
So you're
when the
you're
guy hit, there's a hit. There's a little bit of you can put a little disorienting, and you got to clear your eyes. In other words, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end for every technique. You get hit in the body. Well, I don't know, how many times the guys have actually hit you, knock the wind out, but there's a look. There's pain. So you don't want to be guilty of overacting. But let me tell you this: most directors would rather see you they don't call it overacting, call it big. Give me big reactions, and I'll just tone it down if it doesn't work for the scene. In other words, it's harder to say, give me more of something. Let's just say you're doing a scene and you're angry at me as a character. What they'd rather do is say, hey, you know what? You're a little bit angry. You're more irritated. It's more irritated. You're fed up with them, but you're not going to kill them. You're not going to stab them with a knife. So you're angry, but you're more irritated than. In other words, directors will look at your performance right off camera, and they're supposed to direct you. If your performance looks bad on film, it's not 100%. my fault or your fault as an actor because I do what the director wants. And he's the one who goes cut, print. He's the one who says, oh, yeah, that one's the one I want. So if it gets to the editing room and you let's say you did 3 or 4 takes, you gave him the 3 or 4 takes that he told you he directed you, right? So how does he blame me and you if the performance wasn't right by the time it gets to the editing room? Um, I mean, I'm not deferring the blame. You know, I'm no expert on acting, but I try to give the directors, Keith, what they want. I do.
Yeah.
I don't not listen to them and just say, no, I know better than him how to do this scene. I don't throw my weight around that way. If a producer is hired as a director, if he prints a performance and later in the editing room, they say, oh, this is not working. You know, Keith doesn't really look like he's surprised to see her. Looks like he knew she was there behind that curtain or whatever. It's too late then, right? It's too late to change and you gave the performance. The director said, move on to the next scene. So that's why you have to have a director. You have to have somebody who makes the final decision. And
I'm gonna
it's
have
not good. I know this. Even as a star, it's not me. I asked for a retake of a scene one time in my entire career because I felt I was wrong. I was not in the scene. It was in India, and the director was probably one of the most, if not the most experienced director I've ever worked with. His name is Fred Olin Ray. He's like Roger Corman. He's directed 70 films, 80 films, or a lot. And it was the last scene of the movie. It's the scene where I'm supposed to be looking at the female lead like it's gonna lead to a love affair. Like, oh, I'm really happy. I, that it is not easy for me to portray. It's like you see her and you falling in love with her. The love is in your eyes. And after you did the cake, I thought, oh no, you know what? I didn't look right. I went to the director and I go, Fred, I think we should do another take because I don't think I was into it. And he goes, Don, it was perfect. He goes, when you see it, you'll know. Because Fred watched my performance, and when I saw it, it was fine, Keith. It was fine. There's nothing wrong with it. In other words, you can sense something because you know what you're going on in your brain. So but if it doesn't show on your face, you can't see your own face. So it's the director's job, Keith, to look and see if that's good. If what you did was good. Like you might be thinking about lunch and you pull a gun out to shoot somebody and you think, oh shit, I shouldn't have been doing that. I should have looked meaner or more angry or whatever. But if the director sees it, you might have had the perfect look. Maybe you didn't, maybe you weren't thinking about a roast beef. They don't know you were thinking about a roast beef sandwich or something. But so we can't edit in our own mind. We just have to trust the directors. And I have suggested directors, but I don't hire them. The producers hire them. And so like Cynthia's got a producer that's going to be working with you and me very soon. I've never worked with that director. I haven't seen his work. I'm just trusting that he's she says he's an award winner. He says he's won awards. I don't know what kind of movies. Like if you've won an award for, let's say, a family comedy, this is a dark movie. I don't know if you've read the script yet, but it is a dark. There's nothing funny in it. When a bunch of people get killed in the opening scene of any movie, like if you saw Jackie Chan's drama that he did, his daughter killed in the opening scene. Have you ever seen that one yet? He was making a fool. Okay, he was making a. It was one with Pierce Brosnan's in it.
Right, that's a great movie.
Making a move to drama, and he did the right thing because you see Jackie, you think something funny is going to come along any minute, right? We've seen him for 30, 40 years doing comedy. His daughter gets killed in the opening scene. Are
Wow.
you ever gonna have a funny
No,
thing
he
happen?
never
No.
smiles one time. No.
Well, you know what though? As a character, you 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 that's not gonna happen. It's not they set the mood for the whole movie. So Cynthia sets the mood for her movie in the opening as well.
Wow, that's
As
good.
well. It is well, she said when Kevin Sorbo read it, man, that opening scene is
I
dramatic.
like him a lot. I can't wait to work with him as well.
He's a
I've
very
worked
experienced actor. Very
well, let me
experienced.
ask you this. I've worked with Jackie Chan and really enjoyed it. Sammo Hung is my director. was your favorite director to work with? You've worked with so many.
Yeah, I don't know if this. I know you've asked me that question. Some of these questions were we've gone over the thing, but Art Camacho has directed 3 of my films, and Art Camacho also has choreographed at least 15. So we've got a working relationship. He knows what I like. He knows what I don't like. He's watched my movies. If he hasn't directed them, he's watched many of them, if not all of them, but many of them. And so he knows me. He knows my limitations and he knows my preferences. And probably I'm most comfortable with Art Camacho. I call him my go-to director. If I've ever got a project that
Yeah.
uh, I feel, man, I need to make sure that this is one thing I won't have to worry about is the director. Because I've had problems with directors. I've literally fired directors, and that's a pretty big thing to do on a movie set.
Oh,
Um, yeah, believe it or not. And
not that.
it takes. Yeah, I literally fired. Well, I fired him, and I brought Art Camacho to finish the film because we still had a week of shooting left. Then we had to edit the film. Since I fired him, couldn't. He wanted to come in and edit the film, but I couldn't have him edit the film because in the editing room the film is made. Right, you can
Mhm.
make the film or break the film. So since I had fired him, I didn't want him to go in the edit. So the producer said, "Well, John, you got to go in the editing room then and finish this film." So I edited the film. The film is called "Whatever It Takes." It's the name of it. It's with me, Andrew Dice Clay, Fred Williamson. Um, I believe it's on Tubi TV, Tubby
I know
TV.
both those guys. I know both those guys. That's good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What pretty good movie. It was well written. It was written by the same guy that wrote Redemption for me, and that's the movie with me, Richard Norton, Chris Penn, Cynthia Rothrock. He was a good writer. He died of a brain tumor before the movie
Mm,
came out. Yeah, listen, I've had
that's
some.
sad.
Well, look. As we get older, this is a lesson my grandfather told me. He lived to be 93. He said, "This is the most negative thing about getting old is experiencing the depths of your friends and family." Because my grandfather had buried both sons, which is an unnatural thing, but he lived to be 94. And when he buried his wife, he died that year.
Mm,
So
that's
he
sad.
married his wife when he was 15, by the way, 15 years old to 90 something. They weren't just husband and wife. They were by
Best
his
friends.
family. Well,
Yeah.
they are. I mean, but I just mean it was yeah, a
Uh,
life lesson for me that um, you know we have to deal with things as we live longer, and it just comes with the territory. Comes with the
well,
territory.
that's similar to you working with Art Camacho. He directed me in a movie, The Cuddle, with Michael D.
Oh, I
Pasquale and
remember
Joe
cut off.
Lewis.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, like you said, it's almost family that you're so comfortable with him as a director
He's
that
a martial artist.
it makes your experience making the film much more easier and comfortable being around somebody who understands you. So I definitely understand that. And, so Cynthia was in I guess she made a lot of movies, but she made 10 or 12 with Richard Norton.
Yes.
Who do you think that you've worked the most with or feel the most comfortable with
Oh,
as a star? Because you worked with so many. I mean, probably hundreds. But do you have
yeah.
any that you've worked a dozen times with over and over that you felt comfortable with?
Well, you know what? Unfortunately, producers don't like using people from over and over the same people. It kind of takes the audience because I've got the same audience, martial art action audience. They follow me through my films, and they like to have new female lead.
Yeah, makes
They like to
sense.
have new bad guy, and because I think it has a potential of taking the audience out of the movie when they go, "Oh, wait a minute, I saw that guy in this movie. He was Don's
Right, right.
police
That makes
captain in the
sense.
last one, and now he's Don's uncle." You know, and then I'm not the one who goes through this. Other actors, you pretty much have to have a new female lead each film. You have to have a new bad guy. You can't use the same partner over and over. Let's take Beverly Hills Cop. They had a certain number of cops that were in all this. I believe Eddie Murphy did 3 of them, didn't he? At least 3. I don't remember, but when you do these repetitive, sequels to movies, you can use the same guy if you're paying the same character. But to bring in um, characters from other movies into newer movies, as different people, it has the potential to take the audience out of the movie, I believe. And I think people in the business believe it as well. They don't want to keep doing it. I know this. Would never have me have the same female lead as a female lead in a different movie. You know what I
All
mean?
this. I was real comfortable working with, different stunt coordinators in films. One of them was Stephen Lambert in Revenge of the Ninja. So I had certain
Stunt
people that I
coordinators like
liked
the
working
anytime.
with. How about you? I know Art Camacho does both. He can double as a
Yeah.
director and a fight coordinator. Do you have any other fight coordinators, or was he the one that made you feel the most comfortable?
No, Eric Lee was actually my first American. Well, he's Chinese, but in America, because I had my first two movies were Filipino movies, and they had Filipino local stunt coordinators. And when I got to America, my first American film was a movie called Future Kid, and I had Eric Lee as a stunt coordinator, and then Ring of Fire, Eric Lee, and Eric Lee was my go-to guy as stunt coordinator. But what ended up happening was Art Camacho and I met on Out for Blood. He was actually a stuntman on Out for Blood. Eric was choreographing it, and I believe is one of Eric's students. And Art asked me on Blood Fist 4 if he could try being a stunt coordinator for me, if we could work together. And I used him, and I used him throughout my whole career. There's sometimes, like in Ireland, I had to hire different stunt coordinators, because they didn't want to fly Art there to do it or whatever. In other words, I've used other stunt coordinators, and I believe it is good for me sometimes not to go to the same person because I believe it looks there's variety, and
Right,
sometimes
right.
variety is a good thing. Now, granted, Art does a great job every time. He always does a great job, but sometimes a different look to the film. Cynthia and I both we could have look. I could be a choreographer. If you and I had a fight scene, I could do it all myself. Like Lorenzo Lamas, I didn't realize this, but he did an interview and I watched it. He did all the choreography for his TV series Renegade himself.
Renegade. Right.
He did it himself. Yeah, he just felt comfortable. He said, "I know what I can do, and I know it feels good." And I'm a martial artist. Like you, if, if asked, you could choreograph one yourself. You could say, "Okay, do this move. I'm going to do a block." We could do it. I don't like the responsibility of having that. I like somebody else spending their time on that, and I'll just work on memorizing my lines, doing the drama, because that's work for me, to be an actor. But the fight stuff, Art would show it to me, and if something feels uncomfortable, well, Art, instead of an elbow, I'd like to use a knee. I get the guy bent over, and then I'll just hit him in the back of the head and knock him out. In other words, Art lets me adjust it so I feel more comfortable. Or it might be a kick with my leg. Like you will never see me throw a hook kick with my left leg because I cannot do it. I don't do it. I do not do it. Never have, never will. So
See, that's
if Art
that's my
accidentally
question.
choreographed a hook kick with my left leg, you'd see me cut it right out first time we do rehearsals. So
Right. Well, that's my thing. Did you see Art Camacho knew you and your ability? Did he
yeah,
ever? Yeah. So he would never choreograph a fight sequence using something that you weren't comfortable with. Whereas most of the time on films, as a stunt fighter or as an actor, a lot of times the coordinator will go, "Here's the setup, do it." And my criticism was they never really incorporated the actors' movements enough.
I
Or
have to. I believe you.
yeah, and the thing is, sometimes they go, "Keith, we need you to do a kip up." And I go, "What's a kip up?" They didn't say, "Oh, you can't." They said, "No, you have to go learn it. You got 5 minutes to go learn it and come back and do it." And,
Oh,
so
you know
you
what?
were fortunate. No, you're
Yeah,
fortunate to have somebody like Art Camacho to work with you. Did
yes.
you ever have I choreographed one film, a movie, American Kickboxer 1 with John Barrett in South Africa. And it was hard as being one of the co-stars as well as the fight coordinator. Oh my god. That double duty was so hard. Plus, it's really tough because dealing with the actors, I don't know if you ever had this happen to you on the set, I wanna know, but sometimes the actors would think you're making one look better than the other. Now, so you're the star, you probably never had that come up, but sometimes in a fight sequence, I'd have this person do some techniques, and the guy would go, "Why are you making him look much better than me?" And I'd go, "Boy, this is a tough way to make a living." Did that ever
You
happen?
and I gotta say this in my sets. I never have that kind of ego stuff going on the set. And I believe, I went to Coast Guard Academy. They teach you these leadership things, and you lead by example. If I'm not if I'm not showing any egotistical stuff, like I'll clean up the set afterwards or whatever. There, I have no ego. I'm not better than every other actor because my name goes above the title. You know what I mean? I'm like
Yeah.
everybody else, and I treat myself that way. And I don't want any more respect or consideration than everybody else gets on my sets. And we all we all either look good or bad. In other words, Shelley Winters said this in an interview I saw. She said, "When making lower budget independent films is like being on a sinking ship. We're all on a sinking ship, and we're trying to make it to shore. And if we make it to shore, everybody's successful. Everybody survives." And so, in a low budget movie, we're all in it together, Keith. I'm in it to make you look as good as you possibly can look. You're in it to make me look good. So it's a team effort. It's not I'm on this sinking ship and I'm the only one that's going to make it to shore. I'm going to get the life preserver, and why when they're sinking, I'm going to be the one. No, if there's anybody like that, they shouldn't be on one of my movie sets because we don't treat people like that. Everybody is the same from extras. An extra is just as valuable to me as the co-star. I treat it with the same respect because imagine me trying to make a movie with no extras, none. They're an essential ingredient, right? Just like the stuntman, they're an essential ingredient. The guy who's supplying the cars and the guy behind the camera, the guy who's lighting the scene, and it's a team effort. And you got to look at it that way. Like just because you're starring in a movie, we're we may get treated better. I will admit that we'll get better food. We got bigger trailers. You 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 may get treated better, but we are not better than the we're not better than any human being. The only guy that I see that makes it so obvious is Keanu Reeves. It's like he's making a point. He's saying just because I give away, he gives away 40 million to a hospital, literally 40 million to the hospital that took care of his sister. He's a Buddhist. He rides the subway in LA. The guy's
Right.
multimillionaire, man. He makes tens of he gave his entire salary for the Matrix away. Did you know that? Okay, Google
Yeah. Guess.
Keanu Reeves and his person. He made
Yeah.
30 million, and he said, "You know what? I didn't deserve this." He goes, "This are the special effects team had like 22 people, so he divided it into 22, and he gave them each like a little over $1 million." The special effects team for Matrix One. Now he didn't give away everything because he owned a percentage of it. That percentage turned out to be more than 30 million. So he
Yeah.
gave away salary though. Now who does that? No, I don't care
Yeah.
how much money I make. I don't see myself giving away my salary, entire salary, to the crew members. So
But
so
here's
I,
the thing.
you know,
No, but Don, I swear, I've done this. I've been in films, I've choreographed films, I've produced films, I've interviewed stars. You have such a phenomenal positive attitude. There's not a guess, there's no secret to why you were successful. Because I'm telling you, one of my tenets is have a positive attitude when you're making a film. And then when you make a film, if everybody can create and contribute to it, it makes a better film. You have
yeah,
that attitude in space, but I'm telling you, not everybody does. I did Revenge of the Ninja. Shokasuke, he was so paranoid. He would just, if you look good in the film, he'd make sure he gets an editing portion and cut that part out. But
well,
you
I'm
know how
sorry,
many
Tom.
other,
I don't really know him. I met him one
yeah,
time. I was auditioning
I,
for one of his movies.
yeah. Well, the thing is, I'm not saying his strategy wasn't the worst strategy, but he didn't believe that everybody looking good in the film contributed to the film. He thought it took away from his performance. So he only wanted you to look so good in the film. But I've heard this from so many other actors. I've heard this from so many other stars, and this person,
Yeah, I've heard
you know,
about that phenomenon where
yeah,
they want to
and
be.
it's awful.
In other words, they want you to be in the back of them in the scene. Like they want the light, the key light on them. And
Exactly.
Keith, I never
Yeah.
worried that kind of stuff. Like I look the exact opposite. James Dean, they see this is a thing James Dean would do. While other actors in a scene, he's like Bruce Lee in acting.
Right.
He did 4 movies and then he died. Bruce Lee did 4. He was in the middle of the 5th movie when he died. But but James Dean would do a scene like this. He'd do it like this. So you couldn't even see his face. Not only whereas the other actors in the scene, let's say there's 4 actors, the other actors are cheating to the left. They look where the camera is and they're cheating to try to get both their eyes. And they're talking to somebody here and they're still doing this. They're still trying to show their faces. And that's why they're worried about, they're thinking about their performances, not in the scene. James Dean is the guy he's supposed to be in the scene. He's portraying the guy. That was his intent. Even you couldn't even see his face. And he's like most of his movies, they say he's like a tortured soul. He's a guy who's got some major problem and trials and tribulations going on under whatever the scene. The scene could be he's eating popcorn, but he's eating popcorn and he just found out he lost his job or something. You know what I mean? There's always something going on. And that's where he put his emphasis is, what am I supposed to be feeling? And he had felt things on camera, whereas everybody else was thinking, how can I show my face with the best light, what angle I can show off in a scene? That's the difference. And look, who are we talking about today? James Dean was only, like I said, 4 movies, probably 100 actors worked with him. We don't even know their names. I don't know anybody that appeared in a James Dean movie. The bad guy, the good guy's friend, but
After 4
James
movies.
Dean
Yeah.
is the icon. That would be a, a validation of your belief that it's not about making other people look bad by taking the spotlight. That's not what's going to make you stand out in the end. Being the character, feeling something on camera. Now, look, you might feel like, oh, here's where I'm supposed to feel depressed, and the director may think, no, no, really, I think you would be angry. You would be so depressed that your reaction would be to show anger to this guy. So if the director directs you like that, you got to do it. That's your job, is to give the director what he wants. And you might say, "Oh, the director doesn't know what he's talking about. This is not right. I don't feel it's right for my character." But you know what, Keith? The producers paid the guy, not you. They're paying his salary. They picked him. Your job as an actor is to listen to the director's direction and then give the performance the director is happy with till he says, cut, print, move on to the next scene. And that's what I do. And
So which one are you
so
most proud of? Which
Red
scenes,
Sunrise,
if you had
Red
to say,
Sunrise,
which one are you most proud of?
Red Sun Rising is my best performance probably as an actor because it
Yeah.
has a little of everything. There's some action. I'm kind of a tough guy in some ways. I'm kind of weak in some others, and I plus it's a love story. And I worked with good actors. Terry Farrell was the female lead, and she was a good actress. And yeah, Michael Ironside is my police cap, or was the police captain in it, and Edward Albert Jr. I don't know if you know him, but he's an Oscar-nominated actor. Mako was my trainer in it, and Mako is an Academy Award-nominated actor as well. Um, Actually, he may have won the Academy Award at some point. No, no, Academy Award nominated, I think, Mako. But but it was a good script produced by Paul Maslach, who was my personal or my personal manager at the time.
I knew Paul very well. Oh, yeah.
Paul, yeah, okay. Paul was the editor of Inside Kung Fu for years. Inside, he worked for Curtis Wong, the guy that
That's
showed me
how I
the
know
first
the guy.
two tapes.
At all my tournaments, he'd be writing critiques of my fighting. Sometimes they
Oh,
wouldn't be that great. Sometimes they
yeah,
would be.
he was my personal manager at one time, and then he produced
I like Paul.
Red Rising, and it
He
was
passed away, didn't he? Didn't he pass away?
no, 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 he's fine. And we
Oh,
actually took a meeting last year. We took a meeting with the producer of The Fighter, which got I think 8 nominations, Oscar nominations, and then
how about that?
a couple of people won Oscars for the movie The Fighter. But he's doing a movie right now about a kickboxer.
And
And
to Paul, hello for me when you say, hey, he wrote the worst article of me of all time, but I respected him so much
oh
because it
my
was so
God,
honest of a critique of one of my fights. And I go, oh, but I was blemish and reading it, going, oh, but this guy's killing me. But I've always liked Paul, and he had a lot of talent. So yeah, I remember that. Again, I'm going to do a series on how to break into the film. And I feel
yeah.
every actor, and every time I do an interview, I always try to ask the people I'm interviewing tips. Your whole interview has been tips. Your whole
Well,
interview has been insightful knowledge
well,
about filmmaking. I appreciate this so much, Don.
I look. I can tell you. I can't tell everybody how to get in. Everybody has their own way. I don't know how you get your first role. You don't know how I got my first role or how I get the idea, whatever. But I tell people we all have our own way, but it shows that there's a million roads to the same destination, right? You can get there a million different ways, but I can't tell you what way to do it. But my way was first I moved to LA because some people get into show business in New York. Some people are now doing it in Atlanta.
Yeah.
There are other areas that are producing movies and making TV series. But I moved to LA. And so I moved here. Then you enroll in acting classes because what happens then is you're around a bunch of other people trying to do the same thing you are. You hear about their agents, you hear about their auditions, you hear about their personal manager. You're in the mix now. It's like you want to learn how to do martial arts, join a martial arts school, right? That's everybody's joining. So I got into several different acting classes. I took several different ones. So I'm getting different exposure, different, uh, you know, I, I was doing a crash course, Keith. I didn't want to take years to become an actor. So I took more than one course. As a matter of fact, I had, at some points of my career, I had personal coaches, which I was their only student. I mean, it'd be one on one for specific roles. And uh, so you got to get out to LA, get into acting classes. Then you got to get an agent. And you got to audition for that. You literally, they're not going to take you. Well, sometimes I guess they take you just on your look. If you're a beautiful woman, they say, wow, but you can be a beautiful woman and be a bad actress. And then you're still not going to work in the A films, right? It's not all about beauty. I wouldn't say it's all about beauty and look, these are not to say these are not attractive women, but I mean, Sandra Bullock, Julia Roberts, Meryl Streep, they're not like uh, the top models in the world. It's not all about their looks. They're attractive, but they can act. They're just actresses, good actresses, experienced, uh, and that's why they work. And so you got to come out. And I said, with Marcus, I told Marcus, take stunt stuff because there's going to be fight scenes and stuff. Don't separate. I'm not going to do stunts because I want to be a dramatic actor. And I said, take as many roles as you can, whatever. Audition for everything, uh, and then be professional. Because I've had friends of mine who I gave co-starring roles and they were unprofessional. They got, and from the co-starring role, he got his own movie from the same producer. And he was such a pain to deal with, Keith, that in other words, it went to his head. You heard of that kind of thing where he thought he's a big star. And he literally told, I said, why are you causing trouble on the set? He said, Don, if you don't act like a star, they won't treat you like a star. That was his
Oh my
philosophy.
God.
And his mind, acting like a star is being a jerk on the set
That's
because he
awesome.
was.
That's all.
And he was a friend of mine, Keith. And I got him as in with the company. I co starred him in one of my movies. And they starred him in a movie right from that co starring role. And he became hard to deal with. Now, look, if you become hard to deal with and you're a big box office star, they'll put up with just about anything. You know,
That's true. Yeah.
yes. And if you're Robert Downey Jr., you have so much talent, they'll overlook your drug problems and stuff to give you roles and give you a second chance and let you go to a rehab clinic and then come out, star you in a Hollywood. He got to role, I think it was Mel Gibson is the one that gave him helped Robert Downey Jr. And then there is oh gosh, a TV producer who put him on a TV series and stuff. They gave him a chance to get out of that problem that he was having. And then look what happened. He became one of the highest paid actors, right? I mean, I think he made 70 million on Iron Man. That's pretty good payday.
Shoot. What advice would you give to a martial artist who wants to break into films? He's not going to be the star. She's not going to be the star, but she's going to be fighting the stars.
Yeah,
What advice about their
stunt works.
training
That
would you
was
give
take
them?
every job and be professional and be easy to work with. And even if you get to a position where you think you've got some power and some weight, don't throw it around. Like I'm telling you, I don't throw my weight around even about my acting performance. I don't go in the editing room and cut the dramatic scenes. I only go in there for the choreography. And I do have it in my contract though. I get final cut when it comes to the fight scenes. But
Oh,
I
that's
I,
so
I
cool.
argue the directors don't come in and say, Don, I don't think that kick looks right. Because look, Keith, you're doing a fight scene, right? And you know that if you do a certain thing, it makes it look the kick look wrong. And the directors don't know. Like I could throw a hook kick improperly or a roundhouse kick with bad form, or I could stumble a little bit. Like I know what the fight scene should look like. So I go in the editing group and I have what they call final cut on. If I'm starring in a movie, all the fight scenes got my stamp of approval. But the other
Yeah, that's
scenes do not. There's scenes I wanted cut out of movies. The director wouldn't do it, so I have some scenes in movies that I didn't approve the whole scene. But you know, luckily, that's not what my main thing is. I'm a martial art action star, and the martial arts has to look good, Keith. Like when you get hired, it's not just about your uh, punches and kicks. Because, I tell people any green belt can do what we do in the movies. Look, Keanu Reeves looks great in The Matrix, right? He's not some Battle of Atlanta winner or world champion kickboxer, but he looks fine. You can do and be successful at the studio level in martial art action without being a very good. Well, I'm not saying Keanu Reeves is not a very good. He is good. He gets trained, and I've seen some of his behind the scenes stuff. That guy's dedicated. He's dedicated. He works his rear end off, and so he deserves his success as far as that. But I'm just saying, Keanu Reeves can't out point fight you, and he can't out kickbox you. Darn, we don't have movies that gross those matrices, do we? But it's not all
what
about my boxing. It's not about point fighting.
what no. Let me ask you this. Um, we know we got Black Creek ahead. Do you have any other projects,
Oh yeah.
ready
I
to go?
literally I have 5 movies, 5 movies, and a couple of them are overseas. One's in England, one's in the Philippines. I just have never closed them because I don't do that part of the business. I had an agent. My agent would have closed them all, got all the deposits, sent me the scripts, rewritten. Well, no, what he does is this. He has suggestions for me to rewrite things for my character. But I don't have an agent now. I've had an agent for since I moved here in '85. So I've got to do it myself. I'm just I'm not lazy. I've never done it. So I don't
That's smart.
negotiate. I don't know. My agent always bumped up the prices and stuff, and I'm not comfortable doing that. I guess eventually, Keith, I'm gonna have to get another agent. But right now, the deal with Cynthia is easy because she's a friend. I'm not gonna. It's not about the money for me. It's not about. Although she wrote me a good character, and I've read the script for my character, and so what I need to do, um, I know I'm almost like a comedic relief. Though there's a little comedy. I have a donkey and it's like another character, and it's about me relating to this donkey character, and so there's a little, it's not a, the movie is dark. She said she wanted a dark movie where actual people die and things, and there's danger. Um, when a young girl, you think a young girl's been killed. That's pretty, and yeah, I don't want to. Well, I don't want to have any spoiler alerts, but you'll
Right.
read the script eventually, and then you see it's pretty dark, but uh, it still has a room for a little comic relief, I guess.
Well,
Because
let
that
me just do this. I have no doubt in all the millions, and hopefully that will watch this will see the success, the common denominator of why you're so talented and so successful. It's your attitude. You are a joy to talk with, to speak with. You're a joy to interview. But having you on the set from a director standpoint, or a fighter standpoint, or producer standpoint, and that's part of life. Nobody wants to be around a jerk. Nobody wants to wake up and go to work with a dick. You are such a great person and such an ambassador for the martial arts, but also ambassador for the film industry. That is your secret right there. Your techniques are great. Your acting's good. It's you. You are the secret for your success. I wish you all
yeah.
the best in life. I consider it an honor to be one of your good friends. I can't wait to be in a film with you, be our first time together. So I just want to thank you for again being my guest on
Well,
this
thank
interview.
you, and you'll keep. I just remembered there's just one thing. I like giving credit to Benny and Bill, and I like to give credit for my movie career because this predates Roger Corman. It was Chuck Norris who convinced me that I had a chance of doing it. And Chuck Norris, if you, his reputation precedes him. As a matter of fact, I worked for Chuck Norris on Walker, Texas Ranger. I did one of his last episodes, but he is my go-to guy as far as how should I react to do. I said, "Oh, what Chuck Norris do?" And that's
Well, that's
my
cool.
way of deciding. Yet
Yeah.
Chuck is the most humble, great, generous, wonderful guy on a movie. Well, this is not a movie set. We were on Walker together, but it's the same kind of feeling, you know. It's
Same thing.
yes, he was so gracious and everything. And look, he calls me up. He goes, "Don, I'm wrapping up Walker, and after 8 years, and he goes, I'd like you to appear in and the TV series." And I go, "Okay, Chuck, you know, send me the script." And he starts laughing. He goes, "Don, you don't need to read the script." I go, "I don't." He goes, "You're playing Don the Dragon Wilson." He goes, "When you get here, we'll just tell you what to say, and however you want to say it." And yeah, and that's Chuck. You know what I mean?
Get this,
Like
after my first film after my very first film, Revenge of the Ninja, when it went nationwide, got a theatrical release all over
all
the
right,
world, he called me up personally to, just to thank me. And I went, what kind of first class act is that? What a generous person this
yeah,
person is. Think
yeah,
about this. I opened up this episode,
right,
and either this episode or the last episode, it doesn't matter. I said that I consider you royalty. I consider you and Chuck Norris. How about that? That you two are the icons of our sport, and you represent our sport better than anyone in the film industry as well. So, what a great note to end on. I want to thank you for being on my guest today. And again, if you guys like this episode, please like it, share it, subscribe. It's not that hard. All you got to do is hit that button, just subscribe it, and then leave some comments because I really enjoyed this episode as well, being the interviewer. So just let me know what you think, and I'll be glad to respond to you. Until next time, ciao.